So for everyone, welcome. Thank you all for making time for us this Wednesday morning. Welcome to Smart Water Wednesdays. We are here today with Todd Dovel from Smith Turf. Todd, tell us, where is your territory in Smith Turf land?
Smith Turf, we are a regional distributor in North and South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee from the eastern part of Tennessee to Middle Tennessee, Nashville.
And then what of that do you cover? Is that all yours?
Between myself and another guy, we cover all 4 states, and we go where we're needed. So yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we've had Andy Clarkson on the show from Smith Turf in the past. We've also had a couple of your, at least one of your customers, Vanderbilt, was on here. You worked on that installation, yeah?
That's correct.
Awesome. So what we're going to talk about today is really installation stuff. I took last week off and from the webinar, and was very interested in or very invested in a project that we have going on a corporate level. One of our big customers decided that they were so successful in their test of 50 sites where they saved 50% that they are going to now roll out to hundreds of sites nationally. I'm not sure I can name drop in this scenario, so I'm going to leave it at that. But it was a very exciting deployment, and they called all hands on deck, where I got to put on my sprinkler tech pants and go out and do install work. While I was doing that, I realized how different the process of doing install and programming is than it was when I started. When I started this, if you guys have been around since the ET Plus, you are in the same camp as I am. And with the ET Plus, it was a very, very new thing. Smart controllers just weren't around. We emerged this market. And it is so interesting to just watch the development of the process and the things that we focus in on as water managers, that I thought it was interesting for me enough to think that I could formulate a half-hour segment on it. So throughout the show, I'm going to be touching in with Todd, and we're going to be exchanging ideas on installation tips and tricks. And I am going to, let's see if I can bounce this off, start sharing my screen here. Maybe. There we go. Todd, are you seeing my screen?
Not yet. There we go. I got it now.
Okay, here we go. So what we are going to call the new programming workflow. With my special guest, Todd Dovel, my buddy. Last time we were together, we drove from Tennessee to Virginia together, little road trip action.
Yep.
Stopped for barbecue along the way, drove by Monticello, I think. Drove through the Smoky Mountain Range. I had to sing some Smoky Mountain Range on the way. So we have been through the trenches together. So thank you for being here, Todd.
Certainly. What
we want to do today is talk about setting the program up from start to finish, setting up your WeatherTRAK, and how it is different now than it used to be. So a lot of historical kind of WeatherTRAK stuff. And when I go through this, we're going to talk about the setup, the stuff that we need to do in the setup menu that happens, the very first stuff that needs to be programmed in, tips and tricks, and the importance of the sequence of that. We'll talk a little bit about flow and some updates to the flow process that we've had. And really what is going to drive this conversation is the update on programming stations and the difference that is yesterday's workflow compared to what we do today. So before I get started, Todd Dovel, let me come back to you. Stop share. Todd Dovel, tell me, how many WeatherTRAK installations have you done?
Oh gosh, I've been a part of maybe between old dimension, not just sites. You want number of controllers?
Yeah, number of controllers ish, ballpark.
Let's say let's say 100. If I've got 40 at ODU, so let's say 100, 125.
So one thing I did want to touch on is I want to pick your brain about your favorite installation tips and tricks that make installing a WeatherTRAK different or more streamlined than some of our competitors. I know you already mentioned one that was going to be mine, so I hope you don't steal it. But what kind of installation tricks do you have?
Um, it's all about the site knowledge and the visit beforehand, in the bidding process, or that front end that I was referring to before with the sales guide to head off anything. Um, the flexibility of the installation of the WeatherTRAK controller, one of the key things is being able to flip the transformer.
That was
And
mine.
that was yours. See,
That was
I knew
it.
you never should have told me. It makes the flexibility, because you know as well as I do, you've got one manufacturer that the transformer's on one side, and the another manufacturer's on the right side. So uh, if it's on the right, we're in good shape. If it's on the left, we just flip it around, and it goes seamlessly.
That's exactly it, right? The if you don't know, the transformer on the WeatherTRAK can be uninstalled from it comes on the left side, but it can be uninstalled and switched to the right side very easily. And so because we're retrofit technology, we often, to Todd's point, inherit a setup on the wall where we have our field wires coming in and our power wires coming in, and different controllers that we inherit or the previous technology might have a different configuration. So one of the things that we like to tout, and I don't think enough people know, is the fact that that transformer is easy to switch from side to side. You have to unscrew one screw and unbolt one bolt and make sure to bolt it back down. That is another thing. It's got to be in place and bolted down to have that UL rating. So it's an important step in the process to make sure that you get that reinstalled correctly. The other thing that you talked about yesterday was your trend in two wire. You do a lot of two wire out east.
Yes.
And you gave me a great tip on something I hadn't thought of, color coding your two wire paths, right?
Yeah, when we have the opportunity to design, because as a distributor, we also have a design department, and when we design, we actually will design. If it's multiple wire paths, then we will specify in our specification we provide to the customer or the project two different colored wire paths, along with a tracer wire to be run with the two wire paths. One other thing that I like to do, and I do when I'm in the field working on something, is post construction, or just troubleshooting. Is I will use electrician's tape, colored electrician's tape, and I will mark the incoming power side, so I know where I'm coming in and at all times. But the going back on the install side, the tracer wire is important, and we also encourage looping of the tracer wire at each valve location and/or isolation valve.
So as I'm walking the site, if I'm talking about programming each station, I go into WeatherTRAK Mobile, and the the new layout that we've just come out with swapped the button size, right? It turns out on the old layout, the little button on the screen was the um, advance button, or the big button on the screen was the advance to the next screen button, and the little button on the screen actually did what that screen was trying to accomplish. And so we applied some logic. We said we should make the big button what you're trying to do on this screen. And so Now the big button does this. So on the sites page, we can just look at a little information about the site, see what our site overview looks like. And then we hit this advanced button, and that takes us to the next level, right? Here, after we select the site, we would select the controllers. If I had multiple controllers on this site, you would see those displayed here. And then if I advance one more time, this is when I get into my station-based programming. And I really like what we've done here. So I just recently did a corporate campus where I had the opportunity to map and program like 400 different stations. I wanted to use that as a demo, but it is a high security site and they do not allow images to be broadcast. So we're going to use my controller here at my house. Now, instead of starting that 2-minute test and working the program worksheet, now with WeatherTRAK Mobile, I come and I look at station 1 and I can, from here, start station 1. Boom. Just turn it on. It's going to run the default number of minutes that's set on the manual page and start counting down. Now, instead of writing down on the program worksheet where that station comes up in the field, I've got station name right here. I can go in here and I have shorthand, front yard, door grass, red wire, red multi-strand, blue wire in that multi-strand is what my shorthand in this one looks like, because I have multiple wires running out in the field, so I've got that all marked. But name this by what your eye tells you. Name it by what you see in the field. The water management concept is don't waste water looking for where the water is running, right? And then I go into my auto mode and I set up all of those variables. I can select what type of sprinkler I have and what type of soil, what type of plant. And if I make changes, if I go from a gentle slope to a mild slope, notice as soon as I make changes, this apply button is highlighted at the bottom of the screen. That means save and send, right? So don't make changes without saving and sending. That is a very important part of the process. And the other thing that we've done this for a while, right? This has been a feature now for a good bit, but what the recent facelift has done is integrated the mapping into this workflow. We started using mobile mapping where we integrated our site manager into the app on episode 1. In fact, we're now on episode 27. So about 27 weeks ago or so, we did the release party for mobile mapping, but now we want that to be a part of the workflow. And here where I've got a pin, you can see the pin says view. And if I click on that, it will take me right to the pin. It will show me where this station is watering out in the field. Now, if I go to a station that I am programming for the first time, let me back this guy up. You can see that along here, we've got all of the pins marked, all the stations that have location pins marked on the map, so I can find those. So if I go to the first station that doesn't have a station pin, I can, instead of view, it says place, right? And if I place that, boom, it says, all right, where do you want that location to be? And it lets me zoom in here. It gives me the opportunity. It will drop. You see this blue guy is me, and it will drop that location pin right on my head or right on that blue dot. And that might need to be adjusted a little bit. So we're going to say that my tomato station lives back here in the backyard. And once I've got that in the right location, I select the check mark, and that takes me to the next screen. And with this screen, we add yet another feature that I think is super valuable for water managers, the ability to take a picture and document where that station lives in the field, right? show it actually running. So on this recent site, I went through and take photo. There we go. Not select photo, but take the photo using the camera. Hi, everyone. Nobody needs to see that in a day. You could take the picture of the asset. It's not generally going to be your face, but you hit OK. And now, on top of that station program, I have added a station location. Oh, and I have to assign it. I have to assign it to the right controller, and I have to assign it to the right station in the field, right? This is my tomato station. And then I save that into place. And instead of that 2-minute test only giving me the information on the program worksheet, in that same 2 minutes, now I have completely programmed and sent that program to the controller. I have marked it on a map, and I have taken a picture of that station running in the field. So in the same amount of time, our workflow is so much more efficient that in fact, the same amount of time that only the survey took, I've multiplied the amount of valuable information by at least 2. And I'm done. Once I'm done with the site walk, I'm done with the station programming. So that is a huge, huge improvement in my eyes, right? Because it really gets to the heart of that good water management process. All right, so let me get out of here. That was what I wanted to show you today. If I had nothing else for you, it is the time savings that using that mobile app can provide, and not only the time savings, but the amount of information and the value of mapping and photos that have always been prevalent for good water managers is now a part of the workflow and can be done very, very easily. Todd Dovel, does that sound right?
Sounds perfect. Time savings is what it's all about.
There you go. All right, Todd, I am over time already because we had so many technical difficulties today. But so thank you all for staying late. I'm sorry to run long, but I'm not going to let Todd Dovel go without asking him my signature question, Todd Dovel. I ask all of my special guests, what does WeatherTRAK save you?
WeatherTRAK saves me time and thus my company money, and it gives me the peace of mind that I can do what I need to do remotely and assist the customers that I have in 4 different states.
That's fantastic. So can you give me one example of how managing remotely has saved you time?
Vanderbilt University, or even Cheekwood Botanical Garden, both in Nashville, they had an issue with flow, and this was on an OptiFlow site, and I know we're not going to get into OptiFlow, but
we have previously.
Okay, so it was an OptiFlow site at Cheekwood in particular, and they had gone through and had not learned flow on a couple of different zones, and they obviously couldn't get it to work because it wasn't assigned. They didn't have an assigned flow. So I was able to get in and just look at it, and it took me a few minutes. You know, when you're on the interstate and you have to pull over, you do what you have to do. Within 5 minutes, I just couldn't talk her through it. So I needed to pulled over, signed in. She was still signed in. So I was looking at what she was looking at. I found it. I walked her through what to do. So she not only got to see where the problem was, she fixed the problem. She sent the changes. I refreshed my screen. She did a check on the configure. Everything went fine. It was all green boxes, and it was good. That was 5 minutes, right?
I love it when a plan comes together.
And I was 500 miles away, so that makes it even better.
That's awesome.
And we all have customers that need some hand holding and get a little touchy. And I myself, as you've heard me on the phone, and Ed as well, can get a little anxious, and that comes across as anger, if anything. So it's good. It's peace of mind for me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your perspective. Thank you for making time for us this morning and joining us on the webinar. Ed just put through, I don't know if you saw it, Ed said thank you. You're a rock star. So, and for all of you watching, thanks for making time for us again this week. We'll be back next week with an all new broadcast, and we are looking forward to a slate coming up in November of very exciting new topics. So thank you all, and we will talk again next week.
Thanks for having me. We'll see you.
Thanks, Todd.
Bye-bye.